It's a story of a handsome Marcus who's coming back to you with a new mic. That's right, I got a new mic. Hi. Welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration series with the dulcet tones of Benjamin Cossy. This is me. Hi, welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration series where we talk Bionicle, where we just sit back, relax in a library, smoking a cigar. I don't know why you would do that. People don't smoke cigars anymore, but for whatever reason, that was my image of comfort. I don't know why. Got a new mic. It's actually my old mic. I left it in America when I was there a while ago, and just finally got it back. So, welcome back to a better quality mic and some smooth, dulcet tones of Ben Cossy. Anyway, let's begin with this episode. This episode is on arm designs. In past, I've done an episode on lower arms. In past, I've done an episode on upper arms. This episode is both. So we're going to begin with 3 mocks, or 4, no. The first mock we have today is by Overlord Galaxis, and is called STAG Colossus Plague Mech Omega. Now, of course, this was for Jafer's Instagram contest on Plague Mechs, which actually just finished. So if you wanted to join, my bad. I should have told you earlier. That said, I think we mentioned it in the Patrick Biggs podcast, but, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, besides the point, I think this won. And if it didn't, it should have, because it's an incredible mock. And there's some very incredible mocks throughout that contest. So go on Instagram and check out that Plague Mock contest, because, man, there was some good entries in that. Anyway, so I want to talk about the arms on this guy. So first off, I know these are the hands, but I wanted to mention them. He uses essentially kind of what the Titan Mutanui set used. Those nice ratchet joint things for fingers there. What a great design. I mean, obviously it's quite a large hand for to be able to do that. But it works on this mock, because obviously this mock is a little bit bigger. He's a little bit bulkier. He's like the Hulk. I don't know. And I think that works, nicely, just to sort of factor that in with a hand. Like, okay, what size does to factor that in with the arm. What size does the hand need to be for it to flow nicely? And if you have a much sort of thicker, larger arm like this mock does, then awesome, you get to use a really cool hand design much like that, where you use sort of some larger pieces instead of sort of some typical finger parts that you might use. Also really cool to see because obviously this has that stag beetle sort of esque vibe. It's obviously a little bit different because it's more sort of humanoid and stuff, but it definitely has that aspect to it. And it's cool to see those sort of big pincer claws there used as weapons on his hand, which sort of emanate out of the well, I guess it's out of the hand. I was going to say the arm. Man, I haven't talked about the arm at all yet. This is the episode on arms. But, I mean, that is really important, isn't it? You need to factor in how the hand is going to flow out of that. Does the arm flow straight into a weapon? Which in this case, I guess it kind of does. So it is important to factor that sort of stuff in. So yeah, do you want to add a weapon onto the hand arm thing a la Assassin's Creed, if that's the reference that you wanted to think about? But yeah, you can do that. Another thing I really like about this is the color blocking on this. Really cool how all the black is sort of like the quote-unquote flesh. I guess not really flesh because it's a bug, but like the scales. All the science nerds are going to be like, oh my god, Ben, are you serious? But whatever the skin on a bug is called, I'm sorry, I'm not a bug expert. I need Gringat. Gringat would probably know. I mean, he's marine biology. I know those are very different things, but I'm sure Gringat would be like, aha. Anyway, besides the point, I miss you, Gringat. Where are you? Come back. Come back. Keep studying. Keep being a marine biologist. But man, I miss your mocks. I miss your beard. Anyway, besides the point. What I really like about the arms on this is how they all sort of stem out of the additional part of the color blocking, which is the white, which is obviously the sort of armor on top of his beetle-esque form. And it's cool because it kind of looks like the whole arm design really emanates off of that part. And I always think that's a really cool way to address any part of a mock, is go, okay, well, I want this to sort of be the main part used on it. So let's grab that and then let's sort of build around and off of that. And I think that is very effectively done here because, the armor flows so well with the rest of the actual sort of black arm part. And that's kind of because, well, it was essentially based off of that one part. And that's really cool. So, awesome mock by Overlord Galaxis here. Some really nice concepts there. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Kevin Huxtable and is called the Mighty Doop-Los Mk II. So first off, this mock uses Duplo. Right? Uses Duplo. I had somebody message me on something, I don't remember, and they were like, you know, oh, I really want to build something, but I don't know how, or like, bleh. And I was like, well, what pieces have you got? He's like, oh, I don't have any parts, like, I just don't have any good parts to work with. And he's like, I've got heaps of parts, I just don't have enough, like, good stuff to work with. This Mark uses Duplo. You have no excuse. Grab whatever and use it, because what a fantastic mock that this is, using Duplo as shoulder armor, as chest armor, as leg armor, and then to make these really awesome kind of like pincer things on his hands. Whoa, very cool. And honestly, this mock doesn't use a huge amount of parts either. Like, and this is what I mainly wanted to talk about in this arm design here, is how the upper arms and the lower upper legs rather both literally just use a very, very thin connection of literally just some washers on some axles. How cool is that? How cool is that? Especially because it's in such a nice contrast with the really blocky, like, armor that would be the Duplo. So it's cool to sort of see, like, you know, maybe if you took all the Duplo off, you know, this robot underneath would be a sort of very thin frame, but he puts on the Duplo as his, you know, power armor, and now he can fight or, you know, lift heavy things. Maybe he's like a robot that does, like, maintenance or something. I don't know. But I think that's so cool, is to see that, to see, you know, the contrast between the two. You know, you don't necessarily have to have a really big, bulky lower arm and then a really big, bulky, even bulky upper arm. You could literally just do that. It looks really robotic. It really fits a sort of Bionicle vibe, and it just looks cool. And again, it doesn't use a huge amount of parts. You know, literally, this mock uses just the exact same Duplo part and then some Duplo slope, sort of curved slope thingamajigs. I don't know what you'd call that part. Doesn't use a huge amount of variations of pieces. It's actually the same piece sort of copy pasted in a sense, and that's so cool. So yeah, just keep playing around with it, see what you can do, because man, what a cool concept, and what a cool overall design. And that's kind of all I wanted to touch up upon on this mock, is just, yeah, you can use any part you want, and what a really clever way to not use too many pieces and to make a really awesome, effective arm design and leg design and mock in general. There you go. Of course, that head design is great, using everything. It looks cool. All right, let's move on to the next mock, which is by, who is it by? It's by Mech, and it's called Olivia the Huntress. So this mock is incredible. We've clearly noticed a theme with this episode. I'm talking more about the actual mock than the actual arms. But again, I think there's learning in that. You can't build the arms codependently of the rest of the mock. You need to factor in the textures and the styles and the aesthetics and the colors of everything else so it all flows nicely. You know, there's no point having a super greebled mock where everything on the mock is hyper detailed and then suddenly his hands are really smooth. Unless that's the aesthetic you're going for, you know, it would look kind of weird and out of contrast. And so that's a bit of a detour there, but that's essentially what I'm going to be talking about with this mock here. Look at these legs, look at the torso, look at the head. It all uses this exact same balloon part. So in friend sets and city sets, there's been a few sets now with these actually, these parts make some type of balloon when you put them all together. And some people have done some awesome stuff with it, like making them a vase or making them, you know, all sorts of different things. I think there was an iron builder competition where that was the part to use. And so if you look around enough on Flickr, you'll see some incredible part usages of that part. It's such an awesome piece. But it's so cool to just see that copy pasted. And the overall part itself is so unique and has this beautiful texture and shape to it. And you're able to get this really super futuristic looking sort of overall shape to this mock. And it's gorgeous. It really seriously is. But what I wanted to touch up upon is the arms, as this episode is talking about. He's used a Technic panel piece there. And that's a very similar texture to those parts. And it flows very nicely with that sort of ribcage torso waist design. It's cool just how well those flow together. They're different parts, but they have very similar textures, and it just works very nicely. And then above that, on the upper arm there, you've got this really interesting highlight of pink. And to my knowledge, there's not any pink anywhere else on this mock. But that's really cool, because that's a nice way to add a little extra accent color. You know, sometimes when you're building, you're like, oh man, I wish I could add another color to this, but I just don't know how, or it just won't work to add another one. And in my opinion, that's such a cool little detail. It's just, okay, just on the arm, she's going to just have a little bit of pink there. You know, why not? You know, it doesn't disrupt from the mock at all. It looks great. And even, it's sort of similar to the Duplo guy. You know, that part of this is not armored. You know, that's sort of more of what the underskin looks like. All the sort of white on top is sort of additional armor plates that's been placed on top of the overall body. And that's kind of where some color blocking comes in. And that's kind of how you're able to add that extra color on there, because you go, oh, okay, well, this is under that, so maybe there'd be some sort of like finer details, maybe some more like robotically panel-y stuff that is underneath, and so thus that color would sort of pop out, because that's sort of where some of the detail would be exposed if this was an actual robot. And so that's really cool, just to be able to add that little highlight of color in there. And even sort of slightly change the texture too, you know, like we've got a bunch of cheese slopes there, and there's sort of that sort of break in the texture where, you know, cheese slope next to cheese slope, and there is that sort of slight gap in there. That sort of could be argued that that's sort of in contrast with the rest of the mock being quite smooth and sort of compact in a sense. But because there is that kind of interplay between armor and greeble underneath, it works really well. So it's interesting to play with textures there, as well as playing with colors, and as well as playing with color blocking. I think this is a really, really good example of some really nice playing with techniques. It's awesome. So brilliant mock, brilliant arm design. Let's move on to the bonus mock. This mock is by Daniel Jones and is called This Is What I've Been Working On Lately. So I don't actually know if he's finished this or not. My bad if you have. But even still, in its current state, it looks awesome. Really beautiful color scheme of yellow, teal, and black. Of course, teal has just come back as a color, so now you get to play with a whole bunch of other new teal parts. So why not break out this really awesome, previously extinct color and have a bit of a play, because, man, it's a great color. Anyway, let's talk about the arms on this mock. So we sort of mentioned before on the Duplo mock how the sort of like spindly, for lack of a better term, this sort of thin, robotic-like shape to the limbs is a really great way to sort of not use too many pieces, and is just, in general, creates this really awesome robotic look. And at the end of the day, Bionicles are robots, so it works. Well, not all Bionicles are robots. My Bionicle canon is being tested. Are all Bionicles robots? Answer in the comments below. I don't know. Surely. I don't know. Yeah, well, you'll answer. Hive mind, answer for me. Anyway, besides the point, it's cool to see how that's done. Just this sort of overall, not using too many parts, but achieving a very robotic aesthetic to this mock. You know, it's awesome. Do you need to use a huge amount of parts? Because why not aim for a sort of more, you know, spindly looking robot, something like that. See what you can do. You don't have to use too many pieces for it. It's easier. It's quicker. It's all the things that everybody loves in a mock. So yeah, there you go. Also cool to see some of those Throwbots Slicer head. Not Throwbots. No wait, are they Throwbots Slicer? Man, aren't Throwbots and Slicers the same thing? It's been a while. They are, right? I'm sure. Man, again, I'm gonna get grilled if I'm getting this wrong. But besides the point, cool to see some parts in there. You know, we saw before some Duplo. Always nice to see some sort of more obscure pieces and things like that. You know, it's always awesome. So yeah. That's it from these 4 mocks from this episode. Some brilliant arm designs, some brilliant playing with textures from these guys. Be sure to check the links in the description to the mocks that you saw in these episode today, because, man, these guys are good. Also, be sure to check the links in the description where I've got some links to my social media, and in there, you can, you know, send me a message or two and say, hey, Ben, I got this mock that I made, or hey, Ben, I got this mock that you made, or my friend made, or whatever, and I want to put it on the show. And then you send it over and I'll be like, cool, man, I'll add it to the list. And then when I'm recording a new episode, I scroll through my list and I go, ooh, let's put this in the episode. Let's put this in the episode, blah, blah, blah. And then, boom, we're done. So there you go. Feel free to suggest some themes or suggest some mocks, whatever. I'll happily take the suggestion. Anyway, that's about it. Hopefully you enjoyed the new mic. I enjoyed the new mic. And hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Get building, happy building, and I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.